So, I was wrong about New World Aeternum. It is significantly better than I expected. And I don't think Amazon Game Studios has really advertised it properly. Because a lot of people were thinking that, oh, okay, the game is just going to launch on consoles, not many changes, whatever. But the game is drastically different than launch. If you look at the Steam DB charts, and this is only Steam PC players, there was about 900,000 players at the launch of the game. The original launch, not the Eternum launch. The original launch. That number has dropped significantly really fast. And that is because the game itself was severely lacking back then. Content, design, and things to do at endgame. It was severely lacking. That has all changed. And a lot of players haven't even entertained the idea of jumping back in to check it out. This is this is not good for New World. And hopefully this video sheds light on a lot of the changes that happened, and we can dive into why exactly New World Aeternum is not doing as good as it previously did as the original launch. So New World Aeternum is sitting at about 40,000 to 60,000 concurrent players. That is a drastic difference from 900,000 players. So this is expected to happen whenever an MMO launches or a new game launches. A lot of people flood in, and then they start dropping off. That's just expected in a live service game in general. But that much of a drop off, I think New World was not ready to be released when it originally released. This New World Aeternum, this is what it should have been at release. It is such a stark difference. Now you actually have in-game content. Not only that, there's plenty of like PvP modes, PvE modes. There is. It's such a drastic difference. This is a complete game, okay? Whereas whenever it launched, it was not. It was severely lacking. The only thing good about it was the core gameplay itself. The core combat felt good, and that's all it had going for it. Now, it is a completely different game. And if you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend jumping back in and just trying it. Level a character. That's probably your best bet, because if you log back in and you were already like level 60, whatever the level cap was back then, or close to, you're not going to know what your items do, at least in most cases. I sure didn't. It's best just to start fresh and start learning the systems over again and experience all the reworks that they've done. It is phenomenal compared to what it used to be. So, in the New World Aeternum update, they had introduced archetypes. So whenever you go to create a character, you can start off with different weapons and trade skill boosts, I guess you would call it. So, you can start off as a soldier and have a sword and shield and a hatchet. And your trade skill buffs would be weaponsmith, mining, and smelting. And then there's the occultist. You start off with a fire staff, ice gauntlet, and then your trade skill buffs, jewelcraft, mining, smelting. And then there's the destroyer. You start off with a warhammer and a great axe. And then you get your trade skill buff, which is armoring, skinning, and leatherworking. And then there's the mystic. Now the mystic is essentially the healer. You start off with a life staff, void gauntlet. You get your trade skill buff, arcana, harvesting, and weaving. And then there's the ranger. You get a bow and a spear. And then you get boost to engineering, logging, and woodcutting. And then there's the sword bearer. You get a great sword and a blunderbuss. And you get a boost to cooking, fishing, and leatherworking. And then there's the musketeer, which you start off with a musket and a rapier. And you get a boost to armoring, harvesting, and weaving. Now, none of this is permanent. And your boost is you just start off a little bit higher. So, none of this is permanent. You can change it anytime, and it's not that punishing. So don't be scared to jump in and just try something. And everything else pretty much plays the same as far as classes are concerned. Between switching them and archetypes don't tie you down, is what I'm trying to say. So as I said previously, there are entire zone reworks. The entire leveling process pretty much has been redone. And it is pretty easy to hit level cap just by doing the main story quests. That is fantastic. I've never once felt that leveling was a chore. I mean, yes, it does get slower as you get between like 50 to 65, but it's really not that bad. And I actually enjoyed the overall storyline for the most part. I mean, it's as good as it can get for an MMO. Let's just say that. So, once you hit level 25, this is still the same as it used to be. You get to join a faction. And in order to join a company, which is basically a guild, you will need to join a faction. That is a must. And I believe at level 25 you can also get a mount. I might be mistaken on the faction part. You might be able to join sooner. Because I think 25 is the mount, but they might both be that. It's kind of escaping me right now. I didn't write it down, unfortunately. But that you get the point. So, you get through the leveling process, which you can do dungeons and PvP for leveling too. But main story quest is definitely the fastest. But then you get to the end game. You hit level cap. What do you do now? Well, you could go over to Brimstone Sands, which was a free update or expansion, I would call it. It was a giant zone, giant sand zone. And you can unlock your Heartrune. And what is a Heartrune? It's essentially your ultimate ability. Your, for instance, I use Primal Fury, which I got from the Savage Divide dungeon. And it drops from the first boss. Whenever you have that equipped, you can build up a energy. I don't know what to call it exactly. You build up your energy on it, on your special ability, and then it pops off cooldown, I guess. That's not really a good word for it, but you get the idea. And then whenever I use that ability, I essentially get 2 times larger, and I start swinging with my fists, or claws. I guess I get claws, and you just do a ton of damage. And that is my ultimate ability. There's several different ultimate abilities, and they're really cool. I really like that mechanic. I would say it most closely resembles something from, like, Destiny. It would be kind of the same concept, really. So, that's something that wasn't in the launch of the game, originally. Pretty cool. Okay, so, once you do that, now what do you do? Once you do that in your main story quests, now you can jump into expeditions, which are essentially dungeons. You can jump into mutated expeditions, which is essentially like Mythic Plus in World of Warcraft. And then you have raids, you have soul trials, season trials, elite trials. Those are all solo dungeons, essentially. I would compare them to delves, kind of, but not really. That's the closest thing that I would compare them to, though. And then you have wars, so each of these companies and factions, I guess, companies are fighting for their factions. They can declare war on different cities, which this has been in the game, or territories, and then claim them. And then you'll have that company managing that specific city or territory. And you just basically battle over these different territories. Again, that's been in the game for a while. Everybody knows about that. So, other than that, they have 3v3 arenas. They have Outpost Rush, which is essentially just Battlegrounds, if I'm comparing it again to World of Warcraft. Most people have played World of Warcraft, so it's easy to compare to that. And then they added Racing. So now you can use the new mounts that they added to the game in Elysian Wilds, that update, or expansion, and you can race them. I never was really interested in that. Don't really care for it. But it's something to do, and a lot of people seem to like it. I just don't. And then there's World Boss events. So, Halloween event is still going on, I believe, until the 5th of November. I'm not sure. It's sometime early November is when it's going to end. But the Halloween event spawns a boss I'm not going to even try to announce or pronounce. It spawns randomly between different zones, and then you go there, kill it, or whatever. Really cool mechanic. You throw pumpkins at it, it stuns it, drops it down, and then you can do additional damage to it, or more damage than you would otherwise. And then that drops specific armor, only to Halloween. You can get specific transmogs, house items, stuff like that that's only for Halloween. I believe they did this in the past. It's the same thing. And then there's open world PvP, which is the same that they used to have, but they also added, or they completely reworked the Cutlass Keys territory. And now they have a PvP island. So there are cursed resources and chests that you can get there, and you have to pull them from the zone and get to safety out of the PvP area, and then they become cleansed. And then you can keep them. But while they're cursed, if you die, you lose half of what you get. And that's the same for resources, and you get doubloons. The doubloons can be used to buy armor crates. And to get armor crates, you can get your gear score up to 725. It is not a likely drop, but it's still possible. I have seen several drops that are around like 700 to 710 gear score. Your best bet for getting 725 gear score is probably just doing the raid, which they added a new raid. So, several raids they have now. Quite a bit of dungeons. A lot of people are running mutated expeditions. A lot of people are running the raids. You're not going to have a hard time finding groups. I currently play on Valhalla, which is a legacy server at this point. And all that means is that that's where PC players mostly were before the merger into consoles. But they also have fresh start servers that are specifically for console players to have a fair chance as the PC players. Everybody gets a fresh start. And if you're on a legacy server, you cannot transfer your character to one of those fresh start servers. Quite unfortunate, but hopefully they change it. I don't know. Because if anything ever happens to Valhalla, if it dies down again, because when I started playing before the update, it wasn't nearly as popular. But there are quite a bit of console players that jumped onto that server. There probably still isn't as much as PC players, but there's still quite a bit. So, anyways, if you haven't tried New World Aeternum, I think you should. And I believe Amazon Game Studios have it figured out. And I just hope that they figure out the release cadence for future updates and expansions. If they can get that down, I have no doubt in my mind that New World Aeternum can be a really, really great MMO. It already is one of my favorite MMOs, as it is now. But the trick is releasing enough content to keep people engaged, keep people logging in. So, again, check out New World Aeternum. Alrighty, it's been Zero. Peace out.